When you learn some of the history of this area in Asia, you can wrongly conclude why Japan and China have the tense relationship that they do, especially when you factor in the United States and their desire to rule the world under their imaginary rules-based order doctrine. When you listen to the mainstream Western media, you would think people from China and Japan are not that close. However, when you're here in Asia, you do see and experience more of a much more blurry line where there is much more respect and enjoyment of each other's cultures and modern offerings. Both countries absolutely have their own identity, and who am I to even explore anything other than that? I am approximately 175 miles from Hiroshima and about 470 miles from Nagasaki, both of these cities known as the only cities that have had nuclear weapons used against them, both civilian populations. At the end of the Second World War, Japan was surrendering, America dropped bombs. We all know what happened. Have we learned the lesson to this day? No, we are still warring. The mind boggles. So I am in Osaka, experiencing Japan from the perspective of a Scottish person, me, who lives in Beijing. I always thought I would live a period of my life in Japan, and I still believe that to this day. But I have to say, China is my home from home. However, Japan is an amazing country, and if you want to start exploring the Far East, and you're still swallowing the anti-China rhetoric, then Japan is an amazing place to get a taste of what this area has to offer. And then, just maybe, after you open up your mind, then maybe you will take a trip to explore China. I thoroughly recommend that. Meanwhile, let me talk about Japan. Quite noisy here, I'm next to a busy road, but a couple of things to note about Japan. It is clean, super safe, people are very helpful, very organised place, people are apologetic in a way, and the food is outstanding, both quality and taste. It's fabulous. When I say safe, just be aware that the pavement sidewalk is also shared by cycles, so you've got to be aware cycles and pedestrians on the same place. A recipe for disaster, if you ask me. Getting around here is easy, but the metro system in Osaka, like Tokyo, is slightly harder to navigate than, say, the Beijing metro. It's also an older metro system here, and it's well maintained. As you would guess, it runs on time. I mean, amazingly punctual. This idea of having transportation to run on time and without cancellation would be a major change for some of the countries in the West, and I mean the UK here. Speaking of the UK, we drive on the left hand side of the road. In Japan, they also drive on the left hand side of the road. In Beijing, we drive on the right. I noticed these things. I also noticed how expensive it is to take a taxi in Japan compared to China. It is pricey, man. So is the metro, I think, in comparison to, say, Beijing. This idea of running on time is so cool though. When you experience it, I mean, like yesterday we travelled to Kyoto from Osaka by various modes of transport, and using an app for directions and connections, everything just flowed. We stepped off a train onto a bus and so on, travelled 30 miles, and there was virtually no waiting. Kyoto is a must-see if you're here. It is well worth that short trip. It took us about an hour maybe just over an hour. I did wake up thinking I was going to take a bullet train from Osaka to Kyoto. Not to be. I mean, after all, I am in Japan, where the first bullet train actually was developed, I think about 50 years or so ago. We did travel on trains, many different sizes and shapes and colours, because the system here is privatised. It's owned by many companies, but everything still runs on time. And lots of different trains, as I said, the stations are very colourful. That variety just adds to the whole journey experience, and it was something else. So yes, definitely getting around is very simple. Here.
I can go to the
I came out this morning, 7:30 Sunday morning, thinking I would get some quiet, because it's not that busy, but every so often there's a car flying by or a truck sitting there unloading its goods, peeping away. It's quite noisy here, so I'm going to move. Stay tuned, I'll come back to this conversation about Japan. So shopping here in Japan is much cheaper than China mainland. So you get a lot of people that will come here from China to buy, in particular, the high branded gear. In fact, everywhere you walk now in the shopping areas, it's full of Chinese people coming across to buy the high branded goods. They're actually queued at the door, which is interesting to see. So much for the whole recession thing happening in Japan or China. I often sometimes think that's just a narrative that the Western population tells itself. Anyway, shopping is fantastic here, and it's well worth, again, exploring all the different shopping areas. And of course now you've got people in the West complaining that there's not enough Asian tourism heading to the West and spending their money there. Well, what do you expect? There is so much rhetoric and so much racial and hate speak towards the Asian communities, then why should they go there and spend their hard-earned cash? They are staying in this side of the world, spending their money wisely here. What you're left with in the West then is a whole lot of immigration and a whole lot of people pouring over borders and everyone complaining about that. Maybe you should think about your foreign policy before you start to alienate the people that you do want to travel to your countries and spend their money. So that was a little bit of a heavy conversation there about the whole immigration thing. Anyway, get back to some light-hearted conversations. The toilet experience here in Japan is second to none. Honestly, there's just no explaining it. The toilet, the whole toilet thing, going to the toilet, finding a toilet, experiencing the toilet, it's well worth the journey alone. It is just, well, you got to try it. I also love the architecture here in Japan. The houses they're different. Everywhere you go, you just look around and you see different styles of housing and buildings. And there's lots of different alleyways to explore everywhere in this city, in any city I've been in Japan. So always go exploring and look up. The architecture is just fabulous. I know this area is famous for the earthquakes and it designs buildings around that possibility, but to be honest, I couldn't really see evidence of that. The buildings do look a little bit simple, flexible, flimsy to me, but I guess that is the Japanese design, it's known for that. There is an odd thing going on with cables though, lots of electricity cables and just cables everywhere. And for a country that's known for its organisation, they sure didn't impress me with their cable management. It's really messy. And it reminds me of Christmas time where you're untangling the tree lights from the year before. You just kind of give up and start again with a new set of lights that you buy from the Asda. Maybe I think that's what they're doing here. They just give up and start again. That said, the houses are small, but yeah, it looks to me like they buy a whole lot of stuff, a lot of anime stuff, just figurines and toys and just stuff. So for me, if they've got small houses, where did they put all that stuff they just seem to buy? They buy a lot of stuff. The culture though here is very cool, I have to say. From the anime all the way through to the bright neon lights and everything sandwiched in between that. I mean, it's just cool. Lots of cool people, really fabulously dressed people, flamboyant. They're just cool. Dress sense is amazing. Some really fashionable young people and very refined and fashionable old people. People just dress cool. Just a coolness here. All of that builds up to a very creative and a wonderfully colourful experience. And if you do come to Osaka, you should go and see the markets, the shopping streets, and walk around the river area where all that neon is. And if you want to get a wacky nightlife, then head there. You will see some stuff. Well, you know what I mean. It's mad. It's crazy. But go there. It's worth the journey. Starting to rain now. It does rain a little bit more in Japan than it does in Beijing. Anyway, Osaka has a whole lot of history and it is well worth exploring. I went to a castle here in Osaka. It's called the Osaka Castle and it was very impressive. Bear in mind, I am from Scotland and we do castles exceptionally well. We have them lying everywhere, and we've got a cracking castle up at Edinburgh. So the Osaka castle had to be good to impress me, and it was spectacular. So I recommend the visit, and I recommend seeing a lot of the historical stuff that you can see both here in Osaka and obviously in Kyoto. Now I'm going to finish this video on the food experience. The food here is outstanding. Well, before I do that, before I go to the food, vending machines, they're everywhere. I mean, who owns them? Who maintains them? Who makes the money from them? They're even outside people's houses. Don't know. The chocolate as well. The chocolate here is awesome, and not a Hershey bar in sight. And the food from the 7-Eleven stores is so good. And I remember the athletes during the Olympics, when the Olympics were here, commenting on that very same thing. They're right. You need something good to eat, something fast, go to the 7-Eleven and you will get sorted out with something very, very tasty. And also, just a note here, an age thing, if you do need the toilet, then head to a 7-Eleven. There are often toilets inside there. So speaking of fast food, we had a crazy, bizarre barbecue meal where it was actually timed, it was on the clock. It's a buffet where we had 60 minutes to order and then another 30 minutes to eat, so 90 minutes in total. That was the package that you bought, and it also included beers. The food was impressive, excellent, and so was the beer, but it was a little bit anxiety inducing to be on the clock like that. The menu was an iPad and there was a large timer on there counting down, so you were like really anxious to eat, but the food was just amazing. We also tried various other places to eat, including stalls around the temples and in the markets, and all of that was excellent. But the place that we enjoyed the most was a small local place near here actually, where we sat at the counter looking into the kitchen, very traditional, and it was full of locals having a great time. Saying that, the restaurant was small, very, very small restaurant, but it was well worth it. The beer and the food was outstanding, and it is very much a Japanese way to eat. You're kind of crammed in eating food. It was just, I recommend that type of restaurant if you come here. Small, local, great fun. Beer is always good. So to conclude, Japan is an amazing place to visit and I would recommend it. And of course, I would also recommend China. So if you come to Japan, hey, pop over to China. I really sincerely hope both countries continue to live and grow together and somehow manage to keep away from the baiting that comes this way from the West and mainly America. If I had to choose one country to fully recommend from the three, say Japan, America and China, then I would definitely not recommend America, that's for sure. But I would recommend a visit to Japan, and I would definitely recommend a visit to China, a place I call home, and I'm heading there right now. Anyway, this is me, Ian, from Beijing in Japan, saying to you, take care, look after yourself, look after your family, look after your community, and as always, peace out. Catch you in the next video.
You